I never imagined my son's wedding would be the moment I stopped being a mother and became, in their eyes, disposable. The champagne flute was still in my hand when his fiancée, Clara, turned to the server and said, just loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "The help eats in the kitchen." She didn't glance at me, but her eyes flicked toward Ellen, my assistant of over 30 years, then past her, cutting through me like I was part of the decor. My breath caught, but my spine stayed firm. A few guests chuckled. Some winced. One woman stared at her plate. And Nathan, my son, the boy I carried through heartbreak, sleepless nights, and the 2008 recession, just adjusted his cufflinks and kept talking with Clara's cousin about stock portfolios. Ellen looked at me, her face unreadable. I gave her a slight nod. It wasn't the first jab of the night, the place card reading Margaret Harper instead of mother of the groom. The absence of my preferred champagne replaced by Clara's organic rosé. The fact I'd been seated 2 rows back at the ceremony while her yoga coach got a front row spot. But this was intentional, and I was done. I set my glass down, untouched, reached into my purse, and slipped behind the garden's lattice wall. A cool breeze rustled the lilac bushes nearby. The string quartet played a jazzy take on a Coldplay song. I dialed Victor. He picked up on the second ring, always punctual. "Cancel the $30 million deal Nathan was set to announce tonight," I said, calm as a surgeon. Silence followed. "Maggie, you sure?" "I said it's mine to give, and now it's mine to keep." Victor didn't ask why. He never does. That's why I trust him. "Understood. I'll inform the board immediately." I hung up. The roses by the lattice were wilting in the early summer heat. I plucked one, its outer petals soft and bruised. It had been beautiful, perfect even, but its time was done. I returned to the table. Ellen had refilled her glass, but hadn't touched it. She rose slightly as I approached. "You're fine," I whispered, resting a hand on her shoulder. "They'll need your composure now more than ever." We sat, and then the toast began. Nathan stood, tapping his glass, the crowd quieting. "I want to thank everyone for coming," he said, his smile radiant under the garden lights. "Especially my mother, Margaret." His voice faltered as my name landed like a dropped spoon. He'd expected applause. He got silence. Even the quartet paused. I tilted my head just enough to meet his gaze. His smile wavered. He cleared his throat and continued. Who helped make today possible?" Helped, past tense. The boy who once sobbed into my blouse after losing a Little League game now looked through me like a mirror with no reflection. Clara gripped his arm, beaming. Her dress shimmered like she'd swallowed a chandelier. I sipped my water. The toast went on. Jokes were told. Glasses clinked, but the mood had shifted. Mrs. Pembroke, seated near the fountain, didn't hide her smirk. She leaned toward a young man beside her, Clara's godbrother, I think, and whispered something that made him glance my way. Good. Let them whisper. By dessert, guests were murmuring about the missing announcement. The big news Nathan had hyped all week, the new Harper initiative, the future he thought was secure. Well, futures shift fast when you pull their funding. The funny part? That morning, before the snub, before the toast, before the betrayal, I'd spent an hour deciding whether to wear the locket Nathan made me in 3rd grade. A small silver heart, dented at the edge, with a photo of us inside. Him missing a front tooth, me holding him by the same fountain where they exchanged vows. I left it in the drawer, not because I'd stopped loving him, but because I suspected he'd stopped needing me. After I stepped away from the reception and reclaimed my power, my mind wandered. Not physically, I was still at the estate, but mentally, drifting. I remembered how it started. I was 27 when his father left. Not died. Left. No tragedy there. Unless you count emotional cowardice a tragedy, which I do. I'd been an interior designer at a firm run by three men who never asked my opinion unless it was about fabric swatches or charming clients. When the divorce papers arrived, I had a 3-year-old and $8,000 in joint debt. So, I built something, toddler on my hip. I sketched plans by hand and pitched clients at the kitchen table while he napped. I designed homes, restaurants, hospitals, creating beauty from drywall and grit. I grew Harper Design into a respected name long before it was a family business. Nathan grew up in the office, toddling among blueprints and fabric samples. He called my leather portfolio Mommy's secret briefcase. He called me Mom. The first time he said Margaret in public, he was 24 at a fundraiser. A waiter asked if he wanted to introduce me during his speech. "Of course," he said. "Margaret Harper, founder of Harper Design." I laughed then. It took months to realize I wasn't in on the joke. Somewhere between his MBA and his obsession with jawlines, he'd rebranded me. I went from mother to marketing asset. My name lent weight to his credentials. My face reassured investors. But my voice? Too sentimental. Too off-brand. I let it happen. That's what haunts me. I let it happen. I told myself I was being generous, giving him a chance to prove himself, passing the torch. But that torch kept burning me, year after year. Like when I offered to mentor Clara, and she smiled and said, "We've hired someone younger, more aligned with the brand's aesthetic." As if my face, my hands, my history were outdated. Or when they quietly rebranded my signature wallpaper line as New Heritage without crediting me. Or when, 2 weeks ago, I learned they'd hosted a legacy brunch for influencers at the estate and didn't invite me. At first, I thought it was an oversight. Now I knew better. The wedding made it clear. This wasn't erosion. It was excavation. A deliberate chiseling away of my role until only what they needed remained. The money, the name, the reputation, the facade. The next morning, while Nathan and Clara slept in the honeymoon suite, I had Victor draft the paperwork. We removed Nathan from the operating trust, quietly. No ceremony, just a single clause snipped like a thread. It was the first time in years I felt like myself. By noon, whispers had started. I stood by the hover over the garden fountain with a glass of sparkling water, no champagne this time, and watched the ripples spread. Subtle tremors, invisible to most, but I'd built an empire on reading tones. They'd overheard Clara's comment, "The help eats in the kitchen." Older guests showed their discomfort with tight smiles and averted eyes. But the younger ones, social climbers, boardroom gossips, trophy wives in backless dresses, smelled blood in the water. People forget. Legacy breeds loyalty only as long as it pays. Ellen approached quietly, offering a plate of pastries as cover. "Mrs. Pembroke would like a word," she murmured, then vanished into the crowd like the seasoned shadow she was. Mrs. Lillian Pembroke, a woman who could wear pearls and wield a knife in one breath, found me under the old oak tree. Her heels sank into the grass as she leaned in, eyes glinting under her wide-brimmed hat. "I heard what the bride said," she began, no pretense. I said nothing. She sipped her lemonade. "They forget who built the house they're dancing in." I stayed silent but met her gaze. She smirked. "Don't forget who's still watching, dear, and who remembers where the empire came from." She turned, heels clicking, leaving me with the birds chirping ignorantly. It was a quiet reckoning, the kind that shifts futures without headlines. By late afternoon, I was in the library. The only room untouched by florists and fabric swags. My sanctuary. I pulled the file from the drawer, the one Victor updated last month. Trust documents, emergency clauses, succession plans. Nathan's name appeared 3 times. I'd removed it from one yesterday, but now I looked closer. One section I'd ignored too long. Trustee privileges, not ownership, but influence. Power, decision-making rights over assets that weren't his, yet but would have been. Not anymore. I called Victor. "Addendum to the estate trust," I said. Effective immediately, strip Nathan of all discretionary power. I don't want him co-signing a caterer's invoice, let alone a development deal. Understood, he replied without hesitation. Reasoning? Betrayal, I said, my tone as sharp as my intent. Silence. Then, I'll have it filed before midnight. I hung up, and for the first time since the ceremony, breathed deeply. People forget silence isn't surrender. It's observation, calculation, reclamation. The wedding wound down by dusk. The DJ switched from curated playlists to overplayed pop hits. Nathan made rounds, shaking hands like a senator, unaware how many now pitied him more than praised him. Clara was all cheek kisses and performative gratitude, thanking guests for supporting our union as if they were donors to a campaign. I caught her eye once. She glowed outwardly, but her eyes flickered. She sensed the shift like a stone in her shoe. Ellen handed me a final guest list as we left, those who sent notes, those who asked after me, those who didn't. In the car, I scanned it. Ellen's neat handwriting at the bottom read, Mrs. Pembroke gifted a photo album of the original estate plans, said, You might want them back. I smiled. They thought they were launching a dynasty, but the ground they stood on was still mine. It was a simple request. No scene, no raised voice. That's the thing about women like me. We don't need volume, just precision. Ellen, I said, slipping off my gloves as we neared the main house. Go to the bridal suite and collect what's mine. She didn't ask what. She never does. I didn't explain everything, just that some family vault items had been loaned for Clara's wedding look. On paper, it sounded sweet. An heirloom ring, a pearl-studded hair comb, a nod to tradition from the Harper matriarch. But I hadn't loaned anything. They'd taken. 2 nights before, Clara's assistant contacted my estate manager directly, bypassing me, claiming I'd approved the heirloom collection and providing security codes. Ellen flagged it. I told her to let it slide. Why? Sometimes you let people reveal themselves when they think you're silent. And there was Clara that morning, dripping in borrowed power, my grandmother's sapphire ring on her right hand, my mother's ivory comb in her curls, posing for cameras like royalty. Funny, isn't it? 1 sentence, 1 ounce of respect, and she could have asked. But she took, assuming I wouldn't fuss. I didn't. I made a phone call. Ellen stood in the bridal suite doorway, composed as ever, while Clara clutched the ring like it was hers. I don't understand, Clara said, her voice carrying down the hall. Ellen didn't flinch. Mrs. Harper requests the immediate return of all heirloom items from her personal vault. Clara laughed, like it was a misunderstanding. I'm still wearing them. We're not done with photos. Ellen opened a velvet pouch. The room froze, even the stylist's curling irons raised. Clara's face flickered. This is ridiculous. Ellen stayed silent. Tell her I'll return everything after the honeymoon. Ellen's voice was cool as ice. Mrs. Harper was clear. Today. Nothing beats watching a woman used to controlling the room realize she doesn't hold the keys. Clara removed the ring slowly, faking grace, her jaw tight. She plucked the comb from her hair and handed both over like they burned. Ellen placed them in the pouch, nodded crisply, and left. In the car, she handed me the pouch. I ran my thumb over the sapphire's cool surface. It gleamed like it had been holding its breath. That ring had survived 3 generations of Harper women. Boardrooms, battlefields, birthing rooms. Not a prop for an Instagram post. I slid it onto my finger. My ring. My bloodline. Ellen watched, her eyes soft but proud. She thought wearing it made her part of the story, I said. She forgot who wrote it, Ellen replied. Back at the estate, the bridal party was posing for photos. Clara smiled, tilted her head just so. No ring, no comb, nothing borrowed but her new last name. She didn't make a scene. That surprised me. She probably thought my power play was over, that I'd fade back into my role. Decorative, detached, deferential. Bless her heart. The next day, I had the vault recatalogued. Everything logged, labeled, secured, codes changed, inventory double-checked. Ellen handled it, sealing the heirlooms in acid-free boxes in a temperature-controlled archive. "Until someone earns the right to wear them," she said. That night, I slipped the ring off and placed it in my bedside dish. It had done its job. I wasn't just reclaiming jewelry, I was reclaiming lineage. Clara may have walked down the aisle with my son's name, but she'd never touch our legacy again. It started with a spreadsheet, emailed by Clara's wedding planner with the subject, "Final confirmation of registry funds and gift transfers." 38 entries, from a $10,000 travel fund to a $7,500 furniture credit, all supposedly gifted by Margaret Harper, mother of the groom. I read it twice. I hadn't authorized a cent. They assumed the money would flow like champagne, that the Harper name was a faucet they could tap quietly. They forgot I built my fortune on details. I read every line. "Ellen," I said as she entered, "how many transfers have processed?" She scanned the document like a hawk. "3 so far. The rest are pending." I nodded, called Victor. "Put a hold on all wedding-related transfers," I said. "Immediate, clerical discrepancies." He didn't ask questions. "Done before sunset." I hung up, letting silence settle. Hours later, emails started. Clara didn't write herself. Her assistant did. A quick note to clarify confusion regarding registry contributions. "Some pending items are delayed. Shall we resend account numbers?" Ellen drafted a reply. "Pending review. Please stand by." That was it. Whispers began among the guests. At the post-wedding brunch, I overheard a former client murmur to his wife, "The travel fund bounced." Another guest grinned. "I thought the Harpers were covering everything. That's what she said at the spa brunch." The shine dulled. Clara's smiles tightened, her eyes darting. Nathan laughed too loudly at nothing, pretending the tension wasn't sour. Ellen and I stood by the hydrangeas watching. I didn't need to mingle, the room was talking. Victor texted mid-morning, "All funds frozen, legally airtight." That night, I reviewed the registry line by line. It wasn't just generous, it was greedy. A commissioned portrait, a year-long luxury flower subscription, monogrammed luggage for their global honeymoon, all in my name. The final insult, a $18,200 private couples retreat in Lake Tahoe, listed as donated by Margaret Harper, mother of the groom and family benefactor. Benefactor. That's what they'd reduced me to. A funding source. A tagline. The next morning, I had the financial team send a revised message to every vendor. "Our office regrets a clerical oversight in recent Harper event expenditures. All unauthorized gifts are voided. Future contributions will follow updated estate guidelines." I could almost hear Clara's scream across town. That day, Mrs. Pembroke dropped by, claiming a casual visit, though her driver wore a tux and her lipstick was fresh for noon. She sipped my espresso, studying me with admiration. "The empire's still well defended," she said, tapping her manicured nail on the china. "Rumor has it the registry's been adjusted." I smiled. "Just balancing the books." She chuckled, her pearls catching the light. "You gave them a wedding, but nothing they can cash." That afternoon, Nathan called. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded scared, not angry. "Hey, Mom, there's confusion about the transfers. We thought everything was set. Call me, okay?" I didn't. I sat on my balcony, watching the sun sink below the hedge line, thinking about legacy. Not just what we leave, but what we withhold. They wanted my name's benefits without its memory. Let them pay their own bills. Somewhere along the way, Nathan and Clara started calling me strategic. But love became a negotiation. I stopped giving without a ledger. The next week, I met Victor at his office, wearing navy, not black. Power, not mourning. He opened the conference room door himself. No assistant. His tell. "I want to amend the will," I said before sitting. Victor raised an eyebrow. Nathan's already out of the trust's control? Out of the will entirely? No, I said, peeling off my glove. That's too obvious. I want him eclipsed. Victor leaned back, fingers steepled. Most of the estate redirected to scholarships, housing grants, designed student endowments for underrepresented groups. The rest? I smiled. To Ellen. His lips twitched. Well deserved. A small living trust for Nathan and Clara? I added. Enough to keep them fed, but not comfortable. Let them think I'm still generous. Victor nodded, scribbling notes. We spent an hour reshaping the estate, unraveling their safety net into something lasting. Not spite, protection from manipulation, guilt, and smiling knives. Victor slid a folder across the table. Margaret Harper, revised legacy plan. I'd carried Nathan through law school, his first failed startup, the down payment on their overdesigned mansion. He once said I smothered with structure. Now I'd structured him out of power. Victor hesitated. Rumors about Clara. She's floating a pregnancy, conveniently timed. No medical proof yet. I stared at his phone. Textbook. Clara didn't plan parties. She orchestrated moves. She once threw a dog's baby shower for press. A pregnancy? Leverage. She's been seen with guardianship clause attorneys, Victor said, framing you as unpredictable, unfit. My heartbeat slowed. Unfit. A woman with too many opinions, too much memory, too much power. We've seen this before, Victor said softly. Wealthy matriarchs declared confused, coerced into signing things, moved out for safety. I looked at the folder, then grabbed my phone. Ellen, full archive audit, digital, paper, verbal. Every conversation with Nathan or Clara about money, property, estate access, catalog it. Understood, she said. And no private meetings without witness logs. No exceptions. Especially Nathan. We hung up. Victor poured Earl Grey, and we sat in the quiet of long friendship. You're not just planning, he said. You're defending a kingdom. No, I said, watching the steam curl. I'm defending myself from a family that sees me as a throne they're waiting to claim. That night, I walked the estate's halls, fingers tracing picture frames. My wedding, Nathan at 6 covered in frosting. My first office, the company ribbon cutting, my husband holding toddler Nathan on his shoulders. A museum of a life, a legacy no longer theirs. The farewell brunch was under the pergola, white hydrangeas heavy with beauty, the breeze tinged with rose water and decay. I wore cream linen, no jewelry, no armor, just poise. Let them underestimate it. Guests sipped mimosas and nibbled salmon blinis, laughing too loudly, sensing tension they wouldn't name. Clara floated between tables in pastel silk, all teeth. If I didn't know better, I'd think she was glowing. But I know better. That's the curse of a long life. You see a woman selling something. Clara was on a marketing tour. Nathan stood by the champagne fountain, jaw tight, fake laughing with a hedge fund guy I never bothered to name. He didn't approach me. I didn't mind. I was biding my time. Near the brunch's end, the DJ cut the jazz and handed the mic to Clara, who gestured to Nathan. I stood instead. A fork clattered. Nathan looked startled. Clara's smile twitched. I won't keep you long, I said, my voice clear and warm, as if nothing were unraveling. Thank you all for coming, for standing in the summer sun, for toasting this new family chapter. Nods, soft applause. But I want to say something about legacy. They leaned in. Legacy isn't photos, I said, glancing at the easel's montage. Engagement shots, vacation candids, Clara's filtered portraits she called timeless. It's not wealth, registries, or monograms. Legacy is love. Quiet, unflashy, inconvenient love. The kind that shows up after chemo, remembers your favorite pie, doesn't make you audition for it. Silence fell. Even the cicadas seemed to pause. I smiled, not sweetly, fully. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's who keeps your name safe in their mouth when you're gone. I raised my glass. To truth, and to those who speak it when you're not there. Mrs. Pembroke clapped first, then Ellen, then others, hesitant but loud. Nathan's face froze in that male mask of calculating insult. Clara stood still, her mimosa a forgotten weapon. I set my glass down and left, deliberately, like a woman who knows her destination and needs no permission. Ellen caught up near the rose lattice. "That'll hit the society pages by dinner," she said lightly. I handed her my purse. "Good. Let them print the truth for once." She glanced back. Nathan looked like a man counting sand. Clara looked like she was trying to light a match in a storm. We didn't laugh. It wasn't funny, just honest. That evening, an envelope slid under my study door. No handwriting, no postage. A monogrammed note. "You didn't have to humiliate us." No signature, but Clara's font screamed. I burned it in the fireplace and wrote my own letter to Victor, logging the incident, preserving the truth. Legacy isn't just memory, it's what you record. I wasn't eavesdropping. The walls were just thin. After the guests left and staff cleared crystal flutes and swan-folded napkins, I went to the east corridor for my wrap. My bones ache at sunset, no matter the warmth, a lifetime in heels. I paused at the second-floor landing near the bridal suite. The door was ajar. Voices inside, sharp and familiar. "You said she'd be predictable," Clara snapped. "The gracious matriarch routine, rolling over like always." Nathan's voice, low and cold. "Well, she didn't. Now half our guest list thinks we can't afford our honeymoon." A pause. Clara, quieter, sharper. "How long do we have to keep pretending to tolerate her?" My stomach dropped, but I didn't move. Nathan sighed. "Just long enough for her to slip. She's almost 75. One confused statement on record, one missed pill. Something for a judge." The words cut like a second knife. Not affection's betrayal, but intense. "She won't hand us anything," Clara said. "You'll have to take it." "She trusts me," Nathan muttered. "Always has." "Not anymore," Clara said with a bitter laugh. A glass clinked. Her voice dropped, venomous as tea. "If we want control, we move before she rewrites everything." Too late. I'd already rewritten it. I stood, breathless, until their voices faded and the door clicked shut. I walked to my study, pulled the voice recorder from my purse, Ellen's foresight, and recorded the time, place, and conversation, slow and clear. I signed and dated it. Ellen witnessed it. Victor received it in a sealed envelope within the hour. Evidence, not for today or tomorrow, but for when it's needed. I poured a glass of wine, not my usual Pinot, but a darker Merlot, opened once at Nathan's law school graduation. He'd called it too bitter then. I'd acquired the taste. I sat in my Florence high-back chair, chosen by my husband when he thought furniture could fix a spine, and let the truth settle. They weren't just waiting for my death. They were planning to push. I didn't sleep. I listened to the silence between rooms, the wind against shutters, Nathan's words. One confused statement on record. I was a vulnerability to document, a liability to exploit. You don't recover from that. You shift. I stared at the fireplace portrait. Nathan, 9, in his Little League uniform, smiling like the world was pure. "I raised a boy who became this," I whispered. Then I moved the backup trust codes to a new bank, new structure, new contingencies. Ellen and Victor got copies. Not the family. The second knife didn't bleed me. It opened my eyes. Society's loyalty is skin deep. Beneath champagne toasts and country club smiles lie whisper networks, scavengers waiting for the wind's direction. So I gave them a breeze, subtle, old money scented, with a hint of sour fruit. It started with a lunch, arranged by Ellen. 6 women, decades-long allies, wives of architects, deans, gallery patrons who smell storms in the linens. I didn't mention Nathan or Clara. I didn't need to. I've stepped back from the trust board, I said. Legacy fatigue. I'm funding women's initiatives directly, bypassing family bureaucracy. When someone treats you like a wallet with opinions, it's time to adjust the estate, don't you think? They nodded. Power reclaimed earns nods. By lunch's end, 2 wanted Victor's contact. 1 gave me a women's foundation card, and all 6 knew I was done letting Nathan represent the empire. The next day, I sent a vintage bottle to Mrs. Pembroke. A gift. A signal. A week later, she hosted a brunch. No Harpers invited, my name mentioned 9 times. No war needed to shift perception. Just remind people who benefits them more. Nathan called twice. I didn't answer. Silence makes people nervous. It makes them talk. Ellen brought updates. Mr. Channing said Clara's foundation lost matching funds. She's no longer a controlling party. The Prestons moved their garden party to avoid our fundraiser. No accidents. Recalculations. Nathan noticed at the quarterly board meeting, my first missed in 12 years. I'm concerned about optics, he said, fidgeting with his Mont Blanc pen. There's confusion about leadership. Donors are uncertain. Victor, 2 chairs over, stared. That's what happens when you stand in someone's shadow. You don't know your own shape. Nathan didn't reply. I sipped wine alone that night, not in celebration, but steadiness. Revenge wasn't the goal. Reclamation was. My identity had been buried under titles. Mother, widow, founder, benefactor. Now I was Maggie, justifying nothing. Ellen and I updated the Harper Design Directory. Nathan's title stayed, but mine became Founder Emerita. No forwarding number. Let their questions fall into the void. They thought the company was his. That's the joke. Nathan, in his tailored suits and artful hair, thought he built Harper Design. He inherited scaffolding and called it vision. So I showed him what it felt like when it slipped. It started with the ghost portfolio, Victor's term for my quiet investments, real estate, shell corps, licensing rights, dormant patents, not flashy, but mine. Nathan saw them as balance sheet numbers, paraded at board meetings without question. Over coffee and lemon toast one Tuesday, I began divesting. A boutique hotel group sold, a Scandinavian textile deal reassigned, the Harper Legacy Collection, Clara's pet project, bought by my new nonprofit. By week's end, 1/3 of Nathan's successes vanished, untraceable. Ghosts haunt best unseen. Victor called Friday, voice neutral. Nathan requested a board meeting about portfolio irregularities. Schedule you in? No, I said. Let him explain the house of cards without me. Ellen and I sipped iced tea in the garden that afternoon. Camellias bloomed early, a false spring. He called twice, she said, left a voicemail. Wants to clear misunderstandings. I'm not confused, I said. He is. That evening, the board announced an internal restructuring. The press barely noticed, but the right circles did. Nathan's name vanished from fundraising flyers. A design council meeting he was to host canceled quietly. The empire didn't fall. It was trimmed, surgically, and Nathan bled invisibly. 2 days later, a handwritten letter arrived. Mother, I don't understand what you're doing. I've worked hard to honor what you built. Clara's made mistakes, but we're trying. Why are you cutting us out? Let's talk. N. I stared, worked hard. He redecorated my foundation and wondered why it shook. Ellen found me, letter in lap, eyes distant. You okay? I nodded. I handed him everything, and he treated it like a menu. She said nothing, just set a cup of tea beside me. I should have made him earn it, I whispered. Or understand it. She touched my shoulder. You're doing that now? I folded the letter, didn't reply, and called Victor. Donate the licensing proceeds to women in transitional housing, I said. Let the Harper name mean something again. He chuckled. That'll sting. Good. I slept well that night. Money can't buy foundation. When your success rests on borrowed scaffolding, the ghost comes calling. It arrived in a plain envelope, no return address. Just a photo of Nathan's graduation day. Him at 23, flushed with champagne and ego, arm around me in my navy suit with pearl buttons, my husband's armor. We were smiling, truly. Taped to the back, in my handwriting. The last time you looked at me with respect. Ellen asked if I wanted to deliver it in person. I said no. It needed to land where he felt safest. We mailed it to his office. He called 3 times in 2 days. I didn't answer. Let silence speak. By week's end, he arrived at the estate alone. No Clara, no driver, no polished smile. Just Nathan in a wrinkled blazer, looking older than 39. We sat under the maple tree, like when he was small, sunburned, full of questions. I got your note, he said, fingering the envelope. I nodded. I deserved it. Silence. He took a breath. You think I don't know I screwed up? That I let her talk down to you? That I stood there and said nothing? I hate that version of me, Mom. I didn't correct him. He didn't hate it. He hated the consequences. I wanted to build something, he said. To be someone. You were someone, I said softly. Long before board seats and designer shoes. You were mine. He swallowed. I know that now. That's the problem, I said. You know it now, after everything. He looked at his hands. I miss you. I gazed at the garden, camellias wilting. Missing someone doesn't mean you get them back. I'm not asking for anything, he said. Not money, not access. I just don't want to be a ghost. For a moment, I softened. Then I remembered his voice. One confused statement on record. He wasn't here for a changed heart. He was here because his ground crumbled. What hurts most? I asked. Not the money, the votes, the ring. It's knowing I raised a son who stood by while she mocked me, who watched me be erased and did nothing. His voice cracked. I didn't think you'd care. The fatal wound. You thought I didn't feel? I thought you'd just keep being strong. There it was. I stood slowly, not angry, final. I am strong, I said. That's why I'm not angry anymore. I'm done. He blinked. Done? That's not rage. That's peace. He stood like a man missing a train. I'm sorry, he said. I believe you, I said, meeting his eyes. But sorry isn't a door. It's a mirror. He left silently. I stayed under the maple, sunlight filtering through leaves like memory. The scar didn't beg to be seen anymore. I didn't hold a press conference or family meeting. I just left. One Friday before dawn, Ellen and I packed my office. 42 years of design samples, awards, ledgers, letters, boxed as legacy private. I left my brass nameplate, Margaret Harper, founder. Past tense. Ellen handed me the press release, drafted by Victor as I wanted. After decades of leadership, Margaret Harper steps down from Harper Design, redirecting her focus to the Harper Initiative, a philanthropic foundation for women in design, education, and entrepreneurship. No further ties to Harper Design. No mention of Nathan or family. Just me and my chosen future. My phone rang at 9 a.m. in my new lake cottage, a sun-warmed space where creaks came from settling wood, not scheming. Ellen raised an eyebrow. Screen it? I shook my head. I know who it is. Nathan's voice was rough. Hi, Mom. Can we talk? I'm sorry for everything, for Clara, for not protecting you, for making you feel like property we were waiting to inherit. I stared at the still lake. He continued. I panicked. The company was slipping, and I thought you'd always fix it. I didn't expect you to leave. That was the problem. They never expect us to leave. "I'd like to see you," he said. "Just to talk. Just us." I agreed, needing to see his face without Clara's smile or boardroom lights. We met at a park halfway between the cottage and the city. He looked older, thinner, not in weight, but certainty. "Thank you for meeting," he said. I nodded, letting the wind speak. "I'm not expecting anything," he said. "Not property, title, or forgiveness." "Then what?" I asked. "I want to start over." I studied him. "No," I said gently. "You want to rewind." He blinked. "What's the difference?" "Starting over means building something new. Rewinding means erasing damage without the cleanup." He was silent. "You had chances to protect me," I said. "When Clara belittled me, twisted our history, you stood silent while she mocked the hands that raised you." "I didn't think it mattered," he murmured, the flaw. "You thought legacy was a name," I said. "It's memory. You let her rewrite mine." He pulled a tissue-wrapped item from his pocket. "I found this, from when I was little." I unwrapped a crayon drawing of me in an apron with cookies, labeled, "My mommy is a boss." The O a heart. I felt a pierce, then folded it and handed it back. "I remember her," I said, "but she doesn't live where you treated me like an ATM." He swallowed. "So this is it? No coming back?" I smiled, clear, not cruel. "I raised a son. You raised ambition." He nodded, eyes closed briefly. We didn't hug or cry. We stood, the wind carrying away our last words as mother and son. The press release dropped Tuesday morning. No leaks, just crisp letterhead from the Harper Initiative. Margaret Harper divests from Harper Holdings, redirecting $30 million to the Harper Initiative for Women of Color in Education and Entrepreneurship. Legacy is not an empire or a name. It's who keeps your name safe when you're gone. That last line was for Clara. I didn't name her. She wasn't worth it. She turned my love into a ledger. Calls started within an hour. Ellen filtered them. Headlines flooded. Matriarch exits Harper Empire. Funds marginalized women. Clara Harper, absent from statement, sparks rumors. I didn't respond. I'd said enough. Mrs. Pembroke arrived at noon with lemon bars in an ancient tin. "You dropped the match without flinching," she said, settling into my porch chair. I smiled. "Matches don't scare me. I've been through fire." She poured tea, no sugar, bitter as her wit. "Nathan called me," she said. "He's taking time away. Clara left last week." I didn't flinch, but something settled. "Left?" "Filed for separation, her lawyers tossing around emotional deception and inheritance misrepresentation." I snorted. "Empty pockets make honest lawyers." She laughed, wheezy, pearls gleaming. "Sharpest spoon in the drawer." I watched the lake's ripples. "Did you ever love him less?" she asked. "No," I said. "I just stopped protecting his illusion." That afternoon, Ellen and I walked the shoreline. She asked about the foundation's cornerstone engraving. I paused. "Tell the truth, even if it costs everything." She wrote it down. We walked on. That night, I didn't dream of Nathan, the estate, or lost love. I dreamed of my hands, stitching, building, signing, unmaking, remaking myself. Quietly, fiercely, with dignity. I woke up smiling, alone, and fully respected.